Welcome to Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD, the podcast that delves into the diverse and impactful roles scientists can play beyond the lab, with me, David Mendez. This week on Beyond the Thesis, I am bringing you another treasure from the vault, my great conversation about thesis writing with Marthe Boeglin. If you are preparing to write or writing your thesis, this episode is a must listen. Take your notebook and pencil and get ready to learn a lot and to have great practical tips to apply starting today. Enjoy the episode. Now, a little bit about Marthe Boeglin. When Marthe wanted to write her thesis in philosophy, she was paralyzed for many months by the fear of the blank page. When she eventually understood that every researcher is concerned by writer's block and that writing problems are taboo at university, she started to investigate the phenomenon of writing. One discovery changed her life. Writer's block is part and parcel of the writing process, and there are lots of creative techniques to overcome it. More, some writing techniques hold an almost magical power. Why were these not taught at university? Her passion for writing techniques was born with a double consequence. First, once she overcame that initial writer's block, she was able to write her thesis and wrote it in a wave of euphoria. Second, once she got her PhD, she created Scriptoria, where she offers workshops for PhD students. Its goal? To make writing a thesis easier. Welcome to Papa PhD, Marthe.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you for your invitation. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, Marthe, it's a real pleasure for me. I consider you a friend of the show. We've exchanged, we've communicated outside of the scope of doing interviews, and it's really this question of writing. You know, especially because it's the last stage before you can deliver and finish and then defend. Often it can get even people to quit. This can be such a block that people can say, I can't do this, and drop all those years of work and not finish their degree. That is something that happens. So because this is something that everyone needs, this is something that benefits everyone, and every young researcher, because skills in writing are important throughout your career. This is why I'm super happy on this International Podcast Day to have you here on Papa PhD to discuss this.
I'm happy as well.
So I kind of told your story, your origin story of how you became first interested, then an expert in this question of writing techniques, creative writing techniques, and ways to get unstuck when you get to these blank, writer's block episodes. And one of the things that really struck me, even in other conversations that we had before, was this realization that you had that everyone went through it, even people that you might consider as people who write very well. It's part of the process. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe shed some light on how common this is?
Yes, actually, writing is a process, and the problem of people, particularly people who had no writing problems during school and even at university, writing essays can give them the illusion that they can write, and that writing a dissertation will not be very different from writing an essay. And I think this feeling or this illusion is reinforced by the fact that university does not, or most universities do not provide courses, writing courses. Mm-hmm. So that we have, you might think what I have learned at school is enough to write my thesis, which is absolutely not true. The point is that writing is a process, and a good text is the result of many phases of improvement. You cannot, and this is the worst thing you can do. You cannot, or if you try to write it well or even perfect the first time, you are blocking yourself. It will not work.
Mm-hmm. So there's two things there that I get, which is um, the fact that the training is not offered means that people, when they embark in this adventure of writing a thesis, probably the largest document they will ever write in their in their life, they come with the tools and habits they have from before, but this is a totally different animal. So and then you're kind of just expected to be good at it naturally, and so that's the first thing, and that's where I think the problem lies. Part of the problem lies, which is this is different. This is very different. So it takes a differently structured process, sequence of things you do to get there. And then the other thing is this mental frame of mind of I need to get it right at the first. If I wrote a bad paragraph, then it's because I suck at this, and I clearly my colleague writes, or my PI writes much better than me the first time. And I guess that's where it's kind of a myth. It's not true. Even very, very productive writers and writers of articles go through iterations. Is that what you mean?
Yes, absolutely. And very often what blocks people is also they come with so many ideas, with so much knowledge, and they don't know how to start, which is normal. You have so many things in head. What is important is to start to write, and even if you write for 5 minutes or for 5 pages, just blah blah, after a while you will start to come to your ideas. And perhaps the first draft will be messy, but this is normal. First draft is not something perfect. The first draft is not something we are going to give you readers, but you need this first draft, because then you visualize your ideas. You see all what you have in your mind, and visualizing your ideas helps first of all to sort out your ideas. Then not everyone is interesting for your purpose. When you sort them out, you reduce the quantity of material, so you have a better overview, and then it is much easier to decide in which order you want to deal with them, and also to deepen each interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
So it is.
Go ahead.
It is a very bad idea trying to solve all the problems mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And to think, when I write something, it has to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, for me, what I see the challenge, when you haven't been coached into how to do it and how to start doing it, because again, it's a process. It's something that you ideally start early-ish, and little by little, you make it grow. But in the end, you need to have this many articles or this many words, or it's in the end, it's going to be a gigantic document. But I think what you're saying is you can't download all of that right away from day one onto the paper. You need to kind of grow it like a plant, or you need to create a skeleton and then flesh it out part by part. So what would be, let's say, step one of a healthy voyage into thesis writing? If you want, you can answer in another way. What's one big thing that keeps a lot of people from having a good start doing it?
Step one is to know where I want to go to have a goal. Many people start writing without having a goal, thinking, I start writing and then I will see where I land. This is also a very bad idea, because you waste time, you get lost. Many people have several goals because they cannot make a decision. Everything is important. They want to have everything in the thesis, but it's not possible. You have to make choices. You have to decide what you will keep and what you will leave apart. Being aware that what you will not enter in your thesis is not lost. You can present it in publications, conferences, in other books, in films, whatever. But don't try to put everything in your thesis. This is the best way to get overwhelmed. So you need to have a goal. What can help you to decide what will be your goal is to find what are your diamonds. Then the reason why you write a thesis is to present your diamonds. I mean, originality of your work, what's interesting, what's different, what's new. This is why you are writing this thesis. But many people just forget their diamonds. They present a thesis without any diamonds. So you ask yourself, what have they done? And this can be explained by many reasons. One of them is that often when you spend years working on something, the most original, the most beautiful diamonds seem to be so banal to you that you don't even see them. You don't even think of mentioning them. So in this case, ask your supervisor, your friends, your colleagues, people who can see them to help you make them visible for yourself first and then for your readers.
So it's a triage, kind of the idea that you've produced so much work in the years coming up to the thesis that if you just try to put it all in there, you're not showcasing the best of what you did. So, and it's interesting what you said, because I've heard this thing about writing and then giving the text to someone else, because your brain, you've been writing it since the beginning, and it's hard to review something that you've been working on. And this is kind of a parallel to what you're saying, which is find someone else. Of course, your supervisor is a logical first, but maybe colleagues, and ask them to please kind of distill what they feel is the diamond, or are the diamonds in your thesis. Can you give an example of this? Maybe of someone that you've helped go from a diamond in the rough to something shiny.
It was the story which has come to your mind is a guy. Let's call him Hamid. It was in Germany. He came to my workshop, to my writing workshop for writing a thesis, and he came to me. He was very, very pale and very sad, and said, "Actually, my research is a fiasco. Everything was a failure. All what I've done drew nowhere. I have nothing to write, nothing interesting, and I have to finish this year. My visa is getting. I'm not. The visa is
ending.
getting, yeah, it's ending. Thank you. The financiation as well. I have to go back home, but how can I go back home? My colleagues are waiting for me. A job is waiting for me at university, but the condition is me to bring a doctor title, of course.
Of course.
So I will come with empty hands. I don't know how I can go back home. Okay, it was a drama.
Very dramatic. Yeah.
And then I asked him, can you tell me what you have done? And then he started, I've done this, it didn't work. I've done this, it didn't work. I've done this, it didn't work, and so on. And he was very sad. Me too. And I asked him, have you learned something out of all what did not work? Yes, of course. Okay, then can you tell me again the same story, what you have done and what you have learned each step? And this he did. I've done this, I learned this. I've done this, I learned this, and so on. And at the end, he started to have some pink colors on the face. He was not as sad as before. And then I asked him, do you think some researchers who are working on this topic could be interested in all what you have found? Oh, yes, of course. Would you have liked to know all this before you started? Yes, of course. So why don't you write about all these? These are your diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
It took him a while to reconsider the whole situation, but at the end he realized that although he did not get positive results, all the negative results were also diamonds, because they would help his readers if for people who would like to work on this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm. That's very, very powerful because when you don't have results, it's easy to get a message that you failed in a way, because what gets published is positive results, not negative results. But what I'm hearing is your thesis is yours, and you have the right to extract, even though there's no there's no paper or whatever, you can still extract what of positive you've learned and put it in your thesis and present that as your thesis. And it's something I've never heard. It must have been tough for him the time before he came to you, but then it sounds to me that it was a breakthrough for him of being able to then finally write and defend. Do you have a final chapter of this? He got his degree and he was able to follow up with his plans, his professional plans.
He finished his thesis. He went back to his country. Yes.
Excellent.
He was in physics, so life sciences, and a couple of months ago, I met another lady. She was also in life sciences. I don't remember what. She was crying and telling me almost the same story. I asked her, because I dedicated a video on YouTube in French to this Hamid story. And I told her to look at the video, because I didn't have time to tell her what to do. We were in the classroom, and virtual classroom. And after she looked at the video, she had a lot of ideas to solve her problem. And I think, for what I saw, that she had ideas to write a good PhD.
Wow. So, yeah, this is revolutionary to me, and it's something that I will need to reflect about, even in my PhD story. I wish I had known you that long ago, but so you've gone to an extreme case of someone who does, the data is the experiments, or the data is not coming the way they wanted, and it's not published, etc. And even in that situation, all that work that you've done in the years before, you can turn it into a thesis. But then, of course, there's the whole gamut of other situations of you have great data. There, even if you have great data, the diamonds are just two or three, or there's two or three messages that you're going to drive through, that you're going to drive home on that thesis. And there's a lot of the things that you have done that will not go in the thesis. So I'm thinking of, things have worked well. You have, a paper, two papers, three papers, whatever. This question of finding the diamonds, how does it work in that setting of, what do I put in the B pile and what do I put in the A pile? How does that process work? After 6 years or 5 years of work, how do you choose the diamonds, or what defines a diamond? I think that's the question.
That's the question. I would say everybody will define it another way. In any case, I must be aware that I have diamonds, and this is what I want to show. This is what deserves to be shown.
Mm-hmm.
It can be the method I have created. It can be the results I have found. It can be discoveries I've done. It can be the message I want to convey, which is connected with my results as well. It can be anything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, and once you've chosen, once you've defined, okay, these are my diamonds, the feeling I'm getting is, if you go to a restaurant that has 100 choices on their menu, you can be blocked too, right? You can have this kind of, oh my God, I can't choose. But if they've done the work of having, let's say, 3 choices, which it's very rare, but then it's fairly easy to say, okay, I want this one or this one or this one. And here, what I'm hearing is, one thing that can help you is, okay, there's a lot that you've done in the last few years. Choose a small amount of diamonds. Once you've chosen those diamonds, then it's easier to start working on them. Is that the reason why you should choose your diamonds? Is to be less distracted by all that exists and focus just on those 3 to begin? 2 or 3?
Yes, and also because being aware of what will be the core of your work. The core of your work will be those diamonds. And I mean, there are not so many diamonds. Of course, you choose the big one, the biggest one, or ones. Once you know what will be the core of your work, then it is easier to decide what will be the goal. That means what will be the end of my thesis, and what will be the big research question. That means what will be the beginning of my thesis. So I have those three points which help me already to have a structure.
Mm-hmm. And then once you have that first seed of your thesis, what are then the next few steps? Because I imagine that even choosing these diamonds, you're going to hit writer's block at different ways, right?
Yeah.
There's a paragraph that somehow is difficult to come out in a good way, or there's you can also be uncertain on the order of how things are going to go. So what's the next step on a smooth sailing journey of thesis writing once you've done this first choice and identification of the start, the end, and the diamonds, like you said?
Okay. You need also to know who are your readers. This is also something many people forget.
Mm-hmm.
You don't write the same text for for specialists or non-specialists, for people who agree with you or people you have to convince because they have the opposite position, for example. Depending on who are your readers, you will build an argumentation, a strategy, or another one. This is also very important. For me, the 5 pillars for writing a thesis are the diamonds, the research question, the goal, the reader, and the starting problem.
Mm-hmm.
This is also something very important. The starting problem is a fact. And it is so evident that at least the people I meet, among the people I work with, most of them have difficulties to define the starting problem. Because it is so evident. They see it, but they don't see it.
It's so close that,
yeah. But once they've set words on their starting problem, they embed their whole work in a context. And just hearing the problem, even if I'm not familiar with their topic, I can hear why their work is important.
Mm-hmm.
And why the diamond is a diamond. And sometimes they don't see the diamond, but once they have defined the starting problem, they see what is the diamond. So those 5 pillars are, I would say, interactive. The one can help you which one to set. For example, depending on who is my reader, this diamond will be more interesting than another one, perhaps. I don't know if it makes sense.
It does make sense. Now, one thing that I think is important also, invisible factor in this question of the stress of writing, is the timeline. Often you are at the end of your funding, so you might have to write while you're not receiving money anymore. Also, there may be pressure for you to keep working while you're writing. What is ideally, based on your experience, a good practice in terms of when to start even thinking about the writing and thinking about these questions, that is not the last 6 months of your thesis?
Well, writing is an activity you can start from the first year on. Not writing on your thesis, but you can write in a so-called diary or PhD diary, PhD journal, because you are not motivated to write a lot. And sometimes you need to write a lot to produce just one single interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're allergic to paper, you can also have this PhD diary in your computer. This is up to you. The point is to be aware that this PhD diary is not laboratory. How do you call it? Carnet de laboratoire.
Logbook.
Yeah, it's not a logbook. It's something just for you. Nobody's meant to read in it. Your colleagues, your professors, your friends are not going to read in this. This is just for yourself. And here you can write all what comes up to your mind, connected with your work, questions, experiences you've had. When you are angry, emotions are also important because a PhD student's life is full of emotions, even if at the end the text should be free from emotions. The researcher's life is full of emotions. So these emotions can also push you, they can also block you, and writing about them can help you to get rid of them, to better understand them, and perhaps also to do something with them. And what is important is from time to time to read in your notebook in order to pick up interesting ideas. I see many people I meet the first year, they start keeping writing in a PhD notebook, but they never reading it. And after 3-4 years, they have 10, 20 notebooks. And then before they start reading their thesis, they go through their notebooks and they realize how many interesting ideas they've had, but they did not do anything with them. And now it's too late. This is frustrating.
Yeah. No, I can see how that happens, and there's so many things happening. There's so many things to do, experiments and new challenges and troubleshooting. That good idea that appeared weeks ago, it'll disappear in the mist of memory.
Of course.
So from year one, writing kind of a journal of ideas that is just for you. That's really interesting because a lot of at least my experience doing the PhD was very intense, very focused days, and focused on solving the issue of the moment, troubleshooting the thing of the moment. And what I think what you're suggesting is having kind of a Ariadne's thread that you can go back, and that you can kind of zoom out of this very focused day-to-day life and go back to the big picture every often. It's very interesting.
Yes, and writing, this is also something which comes from school. Most people have learned to write in order to be judged, to be evaluated. But writing is much more than this, and is much more interesting than just being evaluated. When you write, you visualize your thoughts. You connect ideas with each other. Sometimes you see connections you would never have seen before. Or sometimes you generate new ideas because of these connections, for example. And writing also helps to structure your ideas, and doing so to better understand what you are doing. I remember the first article I wrote was after I went to a conference. I talked about what I was doing, and a professor told me, I would like an article about what you are doing for my journal. And I said, okay. And he said at the end, and you will see, you will better understand what you are doing. And I said, what do you think you are? Of course I understand what I do. But I didn't say anything. I said, okay. And once I started to write about my workshops, it was at the very beginning of my writing workshops for PhD students. While writing, I realized that he was right, because I did a lot of things intuitively. I had the feeling now it would be good to do this, and then to do this. If it works, then it's part of my program. I don't reflect on this anymore. But then having to explain to somebody else why I'm doing this now and what is happening after that, and help me to better understand what I'm doing actually. And yeah, it was a very interesting experience. This pushed me to write a book then after that.
Oh,
And
wow.
since then, when I see people who refuse to write, I tell them this story, and I tell them at least try. I have another example which illustrates this idea that you better understand what you are doing when you write. I often meet people who come to my writing workshops telling me, when I wrote my master thesis, I realized that I started to really understand my topic when I was finishing my text. Then I realized that my text was a kind of rough draft, messy. I should have rewritten it, but I didn't have time anymore. I didn't have energy anymore. I don't understand what happened, but I don't want to experience this with my dissertation, with my PhD thesis anymore. And then when I asked them, when did you start to write? When did you write for the first time? The answer is always the same. When I started to write, when I started to write my master thesis. That means all the mess which should take place here in the PhD notebook took place in the master thesis. And again, writing helps to better understand what you are doing, to better understand your topic. And once you've understood it, then of course writing is much easier and your ideas are clearer and much easier to structure. They are already started.
Excellent. And when you're writing in your notebook, so you again, it's like I said, it's like a personal journal of your reflections or ideas that you have. So it's really you're just writing it for yourself, right? It's not. It doesn't have to have a specific format. It's whatever you dump. It's like a brain dump of things that's really really interesting. And now maybe this concept of keeping a PhD journal helps with my next question. Oh, I see here we have a comment from Alberta saying it's a useful and much needed session. Thank you so much, Alberta, for your feedback. I think so too, and this is why I'm super happy to have Martha here today. And I'm going to try to ask all my questions and get the most out of of her know-how and her experience. But one thing one thing that I've seen is, and that I experienced myself, is starting the mess just when you start writing, and it's true that it's tough because it's a mess. It is a mess. You don't know straight away where you're going. You kind of, like you said, as you write, things start to fuse together and to make sense together, and some don't, so you kind of put them away. So yes, having this bubble of reflection, daily reflection or weekly reflection, is for sure going to help. But now I have another question based on the fact that so many of us who are doing PhDs are mostly who come from countries where English is not the first language, are often faced with this idea that, oh my God, my PI writes so well, and this is not my first language. I'm not good at writing because this is not my first language. Is this something that you see with the people you coach too? And is this something that you approach with them?
Yes, absolutely. I see different types. The thing which is to avoid absolutely is what I've seen sometimes, people who say, okay, I will write my thesis in my mother tongue because I can only think in my mother tongue, and then I will translate it. This is a waste of time, and be aware that you will never be able to translate yourself. When I write in French and I want to translate it in German, when I see and by translating, I have a new idea, and then I start to write something else, and at the end, it's not the same text, and it's quite messy because this is not what I have prepared. So rather write in a, let's say we want to write in English, rather write the first draft in a bad English, in a mix of mother tongue and English and Franglish, Denglish, whatever, but have the target language as write in the target language. And you will improve this text little by little. And being aware again that writing is a process, that a good text is a result of many phases of improvement, and that each phase has its own goal, will help you at the end to have a text in a good English, without, even if English is not your mother tongue. But what you should avoid is what other people do. They forbid themselves to think in their mother tongue, although it is much easier for them. Or they forbid themselves to write something in the mother tongue because now they just want to write in English. You think differently in each language. So
Of
the
course.
more languages you know, the more the richer your thoughts are. So why not integrate them all? And then, okay, little by little, you will work on the language. But this is not the most important. The most important is you to put all what you want to say on paper.
So that's kind of what I was thinking, which is, it seems to me from what you're saying that there's no expectation, you being, not a native speaker of English, that your thesis has to be written in the most like authentic, I don't know, like native style of writing. There's no, what the expectation is, that it's correct, that it's accurate, and that it allows the reader to understand your research. Because I think it can be a big blocker of writing, this self evaluation of, I'm not good at this, and when I compare with my PI, I suck at this. So the ideas are more important than the form. That's what I'm getting.
Yes, absolutely, and what you have done, of course. I mean, there are also native speakers writing in their language, no matter if English, French, German, whatever, who write very, very badly. Some foreigners write much better in their language. So not because you are a native speaker, you write well. I remember once I was giving a workshop in English. It was in France. Write your paper step by step. And at the beginning, everyone should present himself, introduce himself or herself, and why they were here. And everybody said, I'm here because I have difficulties to write in English. Everyone saying this. And I was wondering what was the real problem, until we had the luck to have a British man. And he said, I'm here because I don't know how to structure my ideas. I don't like to write. I don't know where to start. And the others were just opening their eyes. A British man who has writing problems, he has to write a paper in English. And from then on, the others started to talk about the real problems they had.
That's so funny. That's really, really interesting. So yeah, if you're watching, if you're listening, don't make the fact that you're not a native speaker of the language you need to write your thesis in an obstacle. It shouldn't be, and there's more important stuff to take care of, like for example, like this person said, structuring your ideas. And you mentioned something interesting. I don't like to write. It's that's a tough one. That is a tough one, right? Because it's a belief or a perception that the person has from themselves. So it's pretty, it's set pretty deep in the person. How do you deal with this idea of, I don't like to write? This is an activity that frustrates me, or that I don't enjoy. How do you change that self-talk, that negative self-talk?
I don't know if I change it entirely. It depends on the reasons why the person does not like to write. But when I show them that writing a text can be a piece of fun, that it does not have to be something boring, that there is also place for creativity, and that you are allowed to write something nobody is going to read. It does not need to be perfect from the beginning. Perhaps they will not love writing, but at least it will not be that horrible thing they imagine it to be.
It makes sense. So I imagine that part of the not liking to write may have to do, and again, I'm thinking of academics and young researchers, and of our way of thinking is to be very self-critical about our work, and if you make it more fun, if you allow yourself more latitude in terms of creativity, etc., and of not judging what you do at each line that you write, then the process is going to be more fun, like you said. This is a good segue into this next question, which has to do with the fun part, because you've mentioned it, and you even in your presentation, to make it become a source of joy. And when you have a blank page, let's say the start of a chapter or the start of a section in a chapter that's giving you trouble, and that maybe there's 2 days you've been writing a line and then erasing it. What are techniques that you use to make it more fun?
Okay, if you write a sentence and you dislike it, write the next one. Don't delete the first one. And perhaps filling the page, or perhaps writing things you dislike, which are maybe stupid, who knows. After a while, you will come to something more interesting, much quicker than if you delete that sentence hundreds of times.
Mm-hmm. You're kind of hurting yourself each time you do that.
Yeah. Yes.
And it looks to me also that, like the journal that you mentioned, if you keep those failed attempts, it's kind of a trait. It's something you can look back at and kind of make sense of it at a later point. But what if it's just that blank page thing, that the writer's block of, okay, I know there's this section, I need to start it, and I can't find the thread of where to start. Are there also techniques or games or things that you can do to just get you going and then unblock the process?
Yes, you can start to write what you just said, like I don't know how to start, I don't like this topic, this is a mess, and writing this unblocks a lot. Or you can also brainstorm your ideas. Just write down all what comes up to your mind connected with your topic, or even if it is unconnected, write down all what belongs to your topic or comes up to your mind. Or what is very popular among my students in the workshops is to write in white. If you write with a computer,
okay,
you don't see what you are writing, so that you cannot be self-critical. You cannot read what you are writing, so that after a while you are in a flow, you let your thoughts think. And at the end, after, I don't know, 40 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on how much energy, concentration, ideas you have, you stop, and then you can put the police in black, and you can read what you have written.
That is so cool.
Some people love it. At the beginning, I proposed this in every workshop. Some people just look at me.
This is weird.
It's just a proposal. If you don't want, then just forget it. Some people feel uncomfortable with this, but for some people, it's really a great help. Some of them, this is kind of meditation.
It does look to me like somehow our nervous systems and our sensory systems are programmed to work against us. And here you're kind of hijacking that by saying, hey, now you can't see what you write, so you can't judge what you write. So keep writing. And then it gets the juices flowing, and it kind of unlocks it from the inside. It's really, really interesting, but it's very psychological.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
It looks to me actually that a lot of what you've mentioned has to do with unlocking your writing skills from the inside. A lot of it seems to be a change of mindset, or in this case, closing one of your senses so that it doesn't work against you. It's really, really, really interesting. It feels feels a bit kind of magical. Someone coming to you and saying, my academic life is over. I failed, and then coming out of your office thinking, okay, let's do this, and then going on with their career. It sounds like magic, but it's very eye-opening to me, at least in terms of how much part of this blockage comes from ourselves, of what we tell ourselves. Also, of course, influenced by what the environment is telling us. Of course, or you compare yourselves to others, or the people you look up to, like your PI or etc., which is normal. But it feels to me that taking part in your trainings and in your webinars, and actually, I'm sharing it here on the video, Scriptoria.com/en for English. And you can find Martha on Twitter, Martha Boeglin. So if you're in this situation of being blocked, I recommend talking to you, because you seem to have really understood a lot of what's easily workable to get you writing. And I think and all that you've been saying is, I want to get you writing, and then you'll kind of, there'll be a current that'll start, and then your boat will sail from there. It's super, super interesting.
We were saying many difficulties come from ourselves or our environment. Last week, I was present in a presential workshop, and there was a young lady. She wrote a very long sentence, and she wanted help because she saw that it was too long and ununderstandable. She wrote it on the table. Nobody understood what she wanted to say, and then I asked her, "What do you mean?" She explained it with very clear words. And then I asked her, "Why don't you write what you just said?" And she did it. And then the sentence was great. So some people think it has to be complicated, sophisticated to sound intelligent. Just write as you talk. This is already great.
Mm-hmm.
What people want is to understand what you say, what you are writing, not more.
Yeah, and more people will be able to go through your thesis and actually understand it and find interest in it. I love it. So we do have a question from Michelle Vornhof, who says, can you say something about the ideal pace of writing? How much a day? How much a week? How much a month?
First, I will say what does not work. What does not work is to work when you have inspiration, or to work for 8 hours, 10 hours in a slot. What works is regularity. So even if you work every day only 1 hour and a half, if you do it every day, I mean, you can take 1 or 2 days off. This is okay. But writing regularly, 1 hour and a half, or perhaps a little bit more, is much more productive than working for slots of 8-10 hours, and then you need to regenerate, so you are tired for 2-3 days, and then again you work for a long slot, and again you're tired. This is exhausting for the body, for the mind, also because after a period of doing nothing, writing nothing, you need time to find the track again. So at the beginning is more and more difficult because you know that you will be losing time to find the track again. Mm-hmm. While if you work regularly, you are on the track, and it is much easier to start and to motivate yourself to work. And what will help you a lot will be, as far as possible, to dedicate always the same time, I don't know, from 7 to 8:30, for example, every day for writing. More if you have more time, of course. But what is important is if you have the whole day, for example, to work, to take a break after maximum 3 hours. Don't work more than 3 hours in a slot, and then take a break, a good break, a 1 hour break. You will, I don't know, you can eat, you can take a nap, you can play football, whatever, or helps to regenerate your batteries, to recharge your batteries. What you should be aware of is that a break is something which helps you to recharge your batteries. So if during the break you start to write your emails, to do all what you don't like to do, you are not. This is
it doesn't
not a
count.
break.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. So that if you work for a slot of maximum 3 hours and then take a break of 1 hour, then you will have, after this 1 hour break, you will have still energy to work for 2-3 hours in a slot again. Of course, we are allowed to take 10-15 minutes break every hour or every 90 minutes, depending on what you need.
It makes sense. And it's really interesting what you said about regularity. It's like if you want to pick up a sport, or if you want to learn a new skill, if you want to, let's say, okay, I want to do meditation regularly. Well, it takes integrating it into your daily routine in a predictable, repeatable, and consistent way. And one day you don't think about it anymore. It's not an effort anymore, and it's psychologically, again, there's this psychological thing. You'll be expecting it every day at that time, so you won't have that oh man, I'm gonna go writing. And if you do that other option of, okay, this month I'll do, I don't know how many blocks of 8 hours, that's going to be tough on you, and it's often counterproductive too, because the quality of your work along those 8 hours is going to potentially go like this.
Of course.
And of your mental health. So let me then ask you a final question, which is, school just started. Some people just started their PhD now. If they've watched this interview, they should know that they should start a PhD journal that's for them. It's kind of to kind of dump their ideas and not lose them. That they should read them regularly and not wait until the end to go and read all those volumes. But so for anyone who's now in graduate school and eventually will need to write a thesis, are there tools, apart from going to see you and learning about these things and learning about these techniques, are there tools that are accessible that you have used, that you recommend to your coachees, that you can share with the Papa PhD listeners?
Writing tools, or not necessarily?
Yeah, writing tools, or anything that will be helpful in this exercise of thesis writing.
Writing, it has to be with reading. So I would like to say something about reading. Also, when you read, particularly at the very beginning, you might feel overwhelmed by the mass of literature which is available. What is important is always to have a goal, to ask yourself, why do I want to read this? And just to focus on what is fitting with your goal. If your goal at the very beginning is something like to get an overview on this topic, you don't need to understand every single detail. You just need to understand the big ideas. Yeah, for example, I often compare reading scientific literature with shopping. If you have an unlimited budget, you just go for shopping. You buy everything you like, no matter if you need it or not. But if you are expecting friends for dinner tonight and you have a limited budget, you'd rather list up all what you need, go to the supermarket like this and focusing on what you need and only on what you need. When you prepare a PhD, it's quite similar. At the beginning, you might have that the feeling that your budget is time. Your time budget is unlimited. At the beginning, you might have the feeling you have the whole life to read. But at the end of the first year, the latest, you start to notice that you don't have much time. And then you need to write your needs, to write your goals, and to focus on what you really need to read in order to reach your goals. And because you cannot read everything from the beginning to the end. And nowadays, depending on the topics, but for most topics, you cannot read everything which is published.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make selections, and what helps to make selections is to know what you need.
Very good. It makes total sense, and it looks to me like a lot of what we talked about has to do with making the experience more fun and to be more of a source of joy than of stress, has to do with planting the seed early on and slowly working your way up to that moment where you actually need to start writing and turn in your thesis. So the message, kind of the take home message for me from this conversation with you is a lot of what's blocking you comes from you. That's one message. The other thing is, the earlier you start doing these little things, reading up, writing, putting down ideas on paper, and thinking of goal, start, diamonds, etc. The earlier you start, the easier at the end it's going to be to put it on paper and to have the first draft, etc., etc. I know that a lot of you that are now in your thesis, you are very, very focused on today. You are and you are asked to be very, very focused on today, and so this last recommendation or advice that Martha gave of integrating this thing of nurturing your thesis into your routine, into your daily routine, is very, very important. Because if it's part of your routine, then you'll not question it. You'll have this little plant that you'll water a little bit every day, and you'll see that it'll start growing. But it does take starting it fairly early on. So. And it's funny because often here on Papa PhD, I talk about career readiness and I say it starts early on. And here it's the same. And in a way, it's related, because to finish your thesis and to go to the next step, this is one thing you need to do. And I if you've listened, if you've watched, one thing I want you to keep in mind is you have the power to do a lot of things that will help you make it a better experience. Of course, there's always, of course, the concept of going towards someone like Martha and get some training and get some coaching, because there's always moments where we're kind of at a loss of what to do next. And I've tried this, I've tried that, and it didn't work. But I would say, start thinking about it today, wherever you are if you haven't thought about it, if this is the first time you've thought about, okay, when I should start writing my thesis, start today and implement something, one thing, this writing of a diary, for example, and then keep it as a daily hobby on the side, and as a fun thing. And you'll see that if you start early on, in the end, it'll be less stressful. That's what I'm getting. I don't know if you wanted to add something, Martha.
Yes, absolutely. If you start to write in your diary, even if you just write 5 minutes every day, it's much more than nothing. And even 2 minutes are more than nothing.
Yeah.
So the regularity is the most important thing. And I mean, if after a while you abandon your PhD diary for any reason, it does not mean that you will never again go back to it. Perhaps you have started one and you forgot it. Now it's time, perhaps, to go back to your diary and to continue writing in it.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Martha, it's been great having you here. This was a great conversation. A lot of important points. I'm super, super thankful that you had the time to come on Papa PhD a second time, this time in English, and to kind of shed some light on this, on a lot of the mechanisms that are preventing us from having fun writing our thesis, but then also to share some of the strategies to make it fun. So thank you so much. Thank
you so much. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you for listening to another Beyond the Thesis conversation with me, David Mendez, and my guest, Martha Boeglin. If you found any value in this conversation, please share it with someone like you and help Beyond the Thesis reach as many ears as possible. And if you want to help a little bit more, please go to papaphd.com/audience and fill in the survey that is there for you and leave a comment so I can give you a shout out in a future episode. Thank you for being a fan, happy listening, and happy sharing.